Now we chant together a few times the mantra Om Namo Narayanaya. So, prayer for peace. Om Namo Narayanaya. 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 Just a few minutes of silence. Sahana bhavatu sahano bhunaktu sahaviryam karavavahai tejasvinavaditamastu ma vidvishavahai. Om Shanti Shanti Shanti. Om Peace Peace Peace. बोलो सद्गुरु शिवानंद महाराज की जय. बोलो स्वामी विष्णुदेवानंद महाराज की जय. Om Namah Shivaya. So wonderful good morning to everybody. It's a beautiful morning to be here out in front of the sunrise. So a few days ago we were here and we mentioned how this wonderful practice of coming out and have the satsang outside like this is a practice that Swami Vishnudevananda established in our different ashrams around the world. And when the weather permits, like yesterday we were planning to have, but the wind was a little bit too strong. Today, wind is a little bit less, so it's feasible. Sometimes when the wind is still a little bit strong, we would sit on the other side. This is a little bit protecting from the wind, but then sometimes people really want to see the sunrise naturally. So we have always this kind of a debate, the wind, the sunrise. And so we decided to go for the sunrise this morning. And this practice we do in our different ashrams around the world year round. We mentioned how in New York and Canada, even when it's minus, we go. Just we have everybody puts all their triple long johns and snow pants and an orange ski mask and everything. And some of the staff think, oh, maybe Swami today will give up the silent walk. And then we still test what we call abhyasa, steady practice. Even in the cold, we go, but like we mentioned before, we don't stop. If we stop, it's only for doing like 50 jumping jacks, and then we continue. So it's well, it is a wonderful thing, of course, to be outdoors. And in our ashram in India, once a month, we would start the satsang at 5:30, and then going for about between an hour to an hour 15 walk to get to the top of the hill where there's a Kali temple. And there you can see the sunrise above all the hills of the area. Beautiful, beautiful walk. So about 1 hour climb. But that morning, we do it once a month because a little bit difficult. And then, of course, the yoga class has to start much later because it takes a long time to come back to the ashram. And there's many chai shops on the way back. So that's the biggest challenge, getting everybody to stay focused back to the ashram. So today, here we'll be sharing some teaching and one of the beautiful subjects on the spiritual path. And it's a common question where people would ask, how do I find joy in adversity? Which basically means, how do I maintain inspiration, enthusiasm, a a great deal of excitement about life while life takes a turn, while suddenly there is a disease, while suddenly there is some betrayal, suddenly there is this feeling of life is kind of collapsing underneath our feet. And truly, life is full of those type of situations of adversity to different degrees. Some adversities are just like not enough salt in the soup, so it's a great state of affairs. But some situations is like you started the day, seemed like just any other day, and that day they change your reality altogether. Like you didn't expect how this could happen, but it was a major impact. And we all have those days in our life, and then those days kind of stay with us for quite some time. So the question is, how do we maintain inspiration, openness, and joy when life is not happening as we want it to happen, how we expected it to happen? So yogis are actually teaching that to find joy in adversity is to find joy in life, because life by definition will be a life of adversity. The yogis call this the pairs of opposites. Things are sometimes it's going to be windy, sometimes it's going to be clear, sometimes it's going to be sunny, sometimes it's going to be cloudy. Sometimes it's we're going to be healthy, sometimes we're going to be sick. Sometimes people will praise us, sometimes people will criticize us. It's unavoidable in every human life to have what you call these pairs of opposites. So to find joy in adversity really means how to find joy in life. And what the yogis teach is a very beautiful little secret is that a real problem or a real issue is not finding the joy in the adversity. Our real issue is that we're not skillful in finding real joy when everything is calm, when everything is well. Meaning the difficulty in us finding a blessedness in being sick is because we're not sufficiently skilled in finding blessedness when we are healthy. Our difficulty to deal with criticism has really come because we're not really skilled in how to deal with a compliment. We are basically asleep when everything is going well. And because we are asleep when everything goes well, then when something goes a little bit off, it's a major shock. So the yogis are teaching that the real secret of finding joy in difficult times is learning how to find joy when things are more pleasant. And that is where we are usually a little bit off. So the yogis teach us how to do this, how to develop great skill when things are all going well, how to be spiritually awake when we are healthy, when we are successful, when people are kind to us and pleasant to us, and everything seems like we are in paradise island everything. But in a moment, we're going to be back in New York City. We're going to be back in Boston. We're going to be back in some place where life is going to nicely shake us. How are we going to be able to see that even in New York City or Boston, what is actually there is only Ananda, only bliss, only joy. Only God is truly there, even though it's a little bit covered up. But it is 100% there, just like in the Himalayas, just like in Paradise Island. But we need to learn to connect to it when we are in Paradise Island, when we are in the Himalayas, when we are healthy and strong, when whatever a good, comfortable situation is there, we need to learn to find the real joy that is there. Then, if we do it enough, we will be able to find it at all times. That is the yogic thinking. So Swami Shivananda refer to this practice of learning to find joy, or really he would call it learning to see God's glory. He calls this Vibhuti Yoga. You say that? Vibhuti Yoga. Vibhuti means divine glories. Swami Shivananda taught he was living on the banks of the Ganga, and his hut is a little bit outside of the ashram in Rishikesh. The ashram is a bit on the side of the hill, and he was living just on the banks of the Ganga. He had a very close relationship with Divine Mother Ganga. So much that even in these last few days of his life, he couldn't eat, couldn't drink. And the last thing he did before he left his body, he drank a cup, a half a cup of Ganga water, and then he left his body. It was something very dear to him. Throughout his life, he was seeing God in the divine river, Divine Mother as the river. And every morning, he would go in the cold weather in the ice cold Ganga and meditate there. You know, now it's very fashionable, the ice cold baths. But back then, there were some yogis would do this, and he would go into the ice cold Ganga, and he would wait until the sunrise, and then he would honor the sun, would see the divine glory in the sun, because sunrise, regardless which religion we are, spiritual, not spiritual, everybody is inspired by seeing the sunrise. There's such beauty and glory that is there that is instinctual to feel elevated by it. So Swami Shivananda says, every morning when you see the sunrise, see it with awe, see it with appreciation. This is divinity giving us all life. We all know there is no life on this planet without the sun. So not to take it for granted, but to see it for what it is, grace, blessing. And Swami Shivananda explained, every day when you learn to see God's grace, or we call it God's prasad. Prasad means grace or blessing. When you train your mind to see this is prasad or this is a blessing, then gradually, when somebody comes and criticizes you, you will see it as prasad. This is grace exactly in the same way, because the same divine intelligence that is manifesting this universe and manifesting everything in our life is giving only but prasad, love, meaning our whole life is an expression of divine love to help us grow, help us to evolve. When we see it like that, we will be able to see beyond the likes and dislikes of the ego, the likes and dislikes of the mind. The adversity really has to do with the misunderstanding of the situation. There is no real adversity outside of the wrong interpretation of the experience. Really, adversity is the greatest blessing in disguise, because only when things become really shaken up, we can grow to a higher realization of who we are. If we are just very comfortable, there is nothing to make us to expand, nothing to make us discover something deeper within ourselves, freer, stronger, brighter. We need to have some lightning jolts to come into our life to help us wake up. So if we're able to have that recognition that behind what is happening, there is only a one divine intelligence that has only one interest, our well-being, our ultimate spiritual well-being. If we can gradually train ourselves to see life like that, we will be able to maintain great wisdom and great clarity about the adversity. And then the ability to see that there's only joy there will be inherent within us. But the secret is that we need to learn to see and to appreciate God. You know, in basic terms, we call it practice of gratitude. Practice of gratitude means thank you, God, for the great things that you're giving. If we are able to give thanks every day when we wake up, we start the day with appreciation for getting one more day. We don't take it for granted, but there is gratitude there. Then gradually gratitude which means seeing God's blessing, seeing God's grace, will stay with us even when things are not pleasant. And then what will happen? There will be a great shift. There will be a great wisdom that is operating within us to be able to read the map correctly. Usually, we cannot really understand. Why? Because we're coming from a starting point of ignorance. We're starting from a starting point where I am a separate, limited individual, and God is maybe sometimes there, maybe He's not there. God remembers to come and visit us, and on Christmas or in Hanukkah or in whatever. But usually, God is somewhere separate, not with us. So the training is to feel that presence all the time. But we need to start when it's easy, like in a beautiful sunrise. So just before we conclude, I want to just so you have some connection directly with the words of Swami Shivananda from this wonderful book, Sadhana, which means, of course, spiritual practice. This is one of Swami Shivananda's primary books, a very big book, like 700 pages, and all different types of spiritual practices are described here, and in-depth study of the psychology of the spiritual seeker. So a wonderful, wonderful book to read. And just a few words of Swami Shivananda exactly on this subject, and an essay called Karma can be transformed into yoga. Karma means, in this case, means all of our life events. Some of them are pleasant, some of them are unpleasant, but all of them carry that potential of being a stepping stone towards yoga. Yoga means joy, freedom, unconditional happiness. So life has that possibility of helping us to become wise, free, and happy, if we know how to relate to the experiences correctly. So that's what Swamiji teaches. He says, you should accept whatever comes, applause and criticism, praise and condemnation, love and hatred, gain and loss, as God's kindly gifts. So this is the secret to keep God in view. That is all coming as a gift. Take everyone who comes in contact with you as a manifestation of God Himself. Bow down to everyone. Prostrate even before asses, donkeys. So Swami Shivananda was not just saying, he used to actually do this, prostrating in front of everyone. And for the TTCs, what is the famous story? Who did Swami Shivananda prostrate to when they first met? Swami Vishnu Devananda. That was the way that Swami Shivananda captivated Swami Vishnu's heart by his egoless nature. Now, of course, Swami Vishnu didn't know that Swami Shivananda was prostrating in front of everybody. He thought he was special, but he was doing it to everyone. And that was his realization, and that was he was teaching his students to see God in everything. So if you feel everybody is but a manifestation of God, you will not only tolerate, but positively love criticism. This is a very advanced state. Please give me criticism. This is a, this is a great sign of great freedom. Imagine the strength that is there when one is able to enjoy criticism. When another man criticizes you, at once think he is right, for he is God. You should always analyze the ideas contained in the criticism only afterwards and arrive at a mature judgment. So, of course, many times the criticism may be incorrect. That's no doubt about that. But what Swami Shivananda is training us how to be free from the egoic impulse to resist the unpleasant situation. Really, it's not just so much about criticism, but it's a matter of training the mind to go over the instinct of how we respond to unpleasant situations, to learn to bear it And then afterwards, to learn to analyze what is the real lesson in the situation. Sometimes the criticism correct, sometimes it's not. But we want to be able to be free from the egoic response. That is the freedom. So finally, Swamiji says, by this method, you would very easily conquer the temptation to offer a rebuff. A rebuff. You will develop patience, understanding. You will have goodwill on all sides from everyone. You should introspect in silence and solitude and analyze the points of criticism. Karma yogis. Karma yogis means really all those who are learning to bring spirit into their daily activities. Karma yogis doesn't mean people living at the ashram, but it's mean people who are learning to spiritualize their life, keeping God or freedom in the forefront and learning how to live their life in a way that will lead them to that freedom. So karma yogis should never let emotions and excitements get the better part of themselves. By following these instructions, any action, sacred or secular, even if it is of service of the family, may be converted into an act of worship, leading to the most sublime goal of self-realization. May you all become perfect karma yogis. Om Tat Sat. So the secret is, again, how do we bring joy in adversity? We need to learn to bring joy all the time. How do we bring joy all the time? We need to connect to the source of joy, which is God in our own heart. So the secret is, let us see that it's only God coming to us at all times. If we can do it when things are easy, we can easily do it when things are difficult. That is the secret. Om